Good afternoon, everybody. I'm the Unholy Mole, and I have Staggers and Jags with me. Everybody knows who Staggers and Jags is. Um,
Hello.
we're gonna do a little talking about just like I got a popular science article, and it's 10 simple ways even a child can tell the Earth is round. So we're gonna take a look at that, and then we'll just discuss whatever comes up. So that's what we're gonna do. So I hope you guys enjoy. Okay. All right. So let me get this set up for the screen share. All right. Okay. Okay. Here we are. Well, okay. So it says, I'll read a little bit. Okay. I'll read you 10 easy ways to tell for yourself that the Earth is not flat. This story was originally published on Smarter Than That. Oops, I went too far. My mouse is not cooperating. In 2008, we are republishing a lightly edited version on Popular Science in light of recent interest in the subject. Humanity has known the Earth is round for a few millennia, and I've been meaning to show more methods that prove the world is not flat. I've had a few ideas on how to do that, but recently got an interesting incentive when Phil Plait, the bad astronomer, wrote about a recently published BBC article about the Flat Earth Society. Now, most recently, rapper B.O.B. went on Twitter rant on the topic. Phil claims it's ridiculous to even bother rebutting the Flat Earth Society. I tend to agree, but the history of our species depends. Our intellectual pursuit is important and interesting. You don't need to denounce all science and knowledge and believe in a kooky conspiracy theory to enjoy some historical factoids about humanity's quest for space. Now,
I want to mention something right at this point.
sure, go
There's
ahead.
something very important that a lot of people miss, and there's a big troll going on. It's a big fucking troll, and so many people in our camp are biting this troll, and it is the Flat Earth Society. The Flat Earth Society are trolls. Go to their Twitter page. They're the ones that tweeted out the Flat Earth Society has members all around the globe.
Now is
Yes, they
I've
are fucking trolls. The Flat Earth Society, the ones that go by that name, the
yeah,
Flat Earth
I
Society
thought
were started. They were started 100 fucking years ago by rich people who were trolls way before the internet,
right.
and thought, wouldn't it just be a lark? We pretended that we thought the Earth was flat, and they spent time coming up with arguments and stuff, and people bought into it. But they're going to say the ridiculous stuff, point at them, and say how you're being trolled when you point at the Flat Earth Society. Look at Jeranism. Look at Delano TV. There are people that believe this stuff,
Right.
but the ridiculous stuff that the Flat Earth Society puts out is Poe. It's Poe stuff.
Yeah, and I've heard the Flat Earth Society was actually, like you said, it was created like 100 years ago, and it was a British, like, tongue-in-cheek satirical thing. Like, I don't know, they may believe, they may believe, or like you said, they may just be total trolls and just trying to get on people's nerves, maybe.
I think that's what it originally is.
As like a satirical type thing.
Yeah, and maybe it was more maybe satirical is a better word than troll or Poe. To fool people. To my understanding, they were just trying to have a laugh.
Right, right. Okay, the first one obviously is Earth from the ISS. There's plenty of pictures. Yes, they have to be. Some of them are photoshopped, but not all the pictures from space. I don't think are photoshopped.
Not all of them. Most of them are, and there's a very important difference. Flat earthers will always use these three magic letters, CGI. NASA admits that all their photos are CGI. Find me where anyone from NASA has said that any of their photos are CGI, because photos and CGI are two mutually exclusive concepts. A photo cannot be CGI, and CGI cannot be a photo.
Right.
CGI is computer-generated imagery. Photoshop composites are not CGI. I have tons of pictures of the Grand Canyon, and I can make you a big composite photo of the Grand Canyon, but it's not going to be CGI. But I would have to use Photoshop, or in my case, GIMP, to make the composite.
Right. Exactly. Okay, the first one we got here is the moon. Now that humanity knows quite positively that the moon is not a piece of cheese or a playful god, the phenomenon that accompany it, from its monthly cycles to lunar eclipses, are well explained. It was quite a mystery to the ancient Greeks, though, and in their quest for knowledge, they came up with a few insightful observations that helped humanity figure out the shape of our planet. Aristotle, who made quite a lot of observations about the spherical nature of the Earth, noticed that during lunar eclipses, when the Earth's orbit places it directly between the sun and the moon, creating a shadow in the process, the shadow on the moon's surface is round. The shadow is the planet's, and it's a great clue about the spherical shape of the Earth. That's one of my go-to arguments when I'm arguing with a flat earther is, like, how do you explain lunar eclipses? You know, I mean, it wouldn't work.
There's no way it would work if the sun and the moon are both above the Earth. It's just another case, and they have this magical thinking. They'll just invoke magic at this point. But
kind of like God.
The only way a lunar eclipse would work. The only way a lunar eclipse would work is if the moon somehow stopped at high noon above the Earth. You know what I mean? And then the sun came around the bottom of the Earth and cast that perfect round shadow of the plate Earth. But that's not the case. Any angle that the moon is at, the sun, if there's a lunar eclipse, the sun will cast the same shadow on the Earth. You would expect to see like a slit move across it sometimes if the Earth.
Right. And you know, I know this isn't something I ever thought of, but if you think about the sun, actual noon and solar noon are totally different. So if the Earth wasn't round, that wouldn't be the case. It would be, it'd be directly overhead at noon, no matter where you are, because that's the way, that's the way you're supposed to, to know it's noon, is the sun is directly overhead. But actual noon time and solar noon are totally two different. I mean, they could be a half hour, 45 minutes apart. So
and depending on daylight saving time, it could be an hour or two off too.
And so that just shows you that the Earth is a globe and on a tilt. It's tilted on its axis, because depending on what time of year it is, makes a difference on where the moon is, not the moon, but the sun is overhead in the sky at noon. I mean, that in the wintertime, the sun's at more of an angle than it is in the summertime. Okay, now this is another.
The sun comes way high up in the sky, almost directly overhead, but it's still a little bit south of me because I'm in the northern hemisphere, right? But not by much. I mean, because I'm tipped at it. Actually, maybe it isn't even a little bit. Maybe it is pretty much overhead because we're pointed right at it. It gets pretty high in the sky, but it doesn't go too far north ever, and then it goes back down south after the solstice.
But I mean. But the seasons make it. I mean, the sun isn't exactly the same every day. I mean, every day it's going to be a little bit further, because as we're rotating, I mean, that's how the seasons work too, So and this is another argument I always forget about the Foucault pendulum experiment. That, I mean, I don't know how anybody. I mean, I suppose you could make a.
You're starting to break up a little bit, buddy. You're starting to.
All right. How's that? Is that better? Any better?
It's just. Well, I can hear you now, but it was kind of like a robot-y thing. It sounds like one of the Google Hangouts issues.
It probably is. But you could probably make a miniature Foucault pendulum.
You might have to refresh.
Okay, I'll try that. Hold on a second. Let me go to Hangouts. I'll refresh.
We are currently experiencing technical difficulties. Hey, Hey. Hey.
Okay, I'm back. And, but I wonder what's up with Google lately, because I know that I have pretty good internet service, so it has to be
It's just
a Google thing and not an internet
it's always been
thing.
it is a Google thing. It's always been a Google thing, and it always will be a Google thing. And these Hangouts always, it's never somebody's in causing that to happen. I mean, if you refresh a couple times and it's still not working, then yeah, it's your internet. But people have to all the time. Doesn't matter how good your internet is. Doesn't matter any of that shit. Google gets clogged up in their Hangout system sometimes, and it takes a little bit of work to get through. But anyway, I think you were talking about pendulums.
Yeah, I was talking about the full cult pendulum. Hold on, I'll share it with you again. Okay. Yeah, so the full cult pendulum, I mean, anybody can go to, I think there's any science museum, I think, would have a full cult pendulum. So I just don't understand why I mean, like, since we talked to them guys, like you said to them, I don't like to think of all flat earthers as, I'm not going to call them idiots anymore. But I would like to understand why they feel the need to disbelieve the evidence that is laid at our feet. That's the only thing that doesn't make sense to me about it. I mean, the Earth is obviously round. I mean, the way, I mean, we'll go further into it. Like, okay, like ships on the horizon. That's the next one. And we all know that when a ship's going away from you on the horizon, the bottom drops out first. And if that's proof the earth is round, because it's going over the curve. So of course you lose the bottom first. Then it goes further and further and further down. Now I don't know about this P900 camera they got that says, they can zoom in. They probably can. But
here's what's happening. Here's what's happening with the P900. The ship that they're looking at is going so far away that they can't see it with the naked eye. You cannot watch a ship go over the horizon with the naked eye unless it's a very, very large ship. And so it's disappearing off into the horizon. It's getting too small for their eye to pick up. And then when they zoom in with the P900, they're seeing it again because now they're zoomed in and it hasn't gone over the horizon yet. And what they're saying is, oh, look, it's gone over the horizon, but then when I zoom in, it's back. So it's just a matter of perspective. But what they're failing to do is continue the experiment to its completion and keep watching the ship sail away with the P900. And they will eventually see it actually go over the horizon, bottom first, very clearly. They'll see it with their magical P900 telescoping digital camera. They'll see the ship go over the horizon bottom first. They don't want to do that because that disrupts their worldview.
Yeah, and like I've said before, I almost wonder if it's just a need to be an unconformist, and it's almost like they're being conformist by being unconformists. Does that make sense? Kind of like, when you're a teenager and I think we've talked about this before, like, when you're a teenager and you dress like, or like you become a goth or a emo or a grunger. That's what I am, because I'm a little older. So I was like a grunger type / punk, and I thought I was being so different, but all of my friends were the same way. So how different was I being? And that's growing up in the '90s. I mean, that's pretty much what your choices was to be a grunger. I mean, that was the entire music scene. I mean, there was some like R&B, I think it's like CNC Music Factory and Janet Jackson and stuff like that, I remember. But it was, I mean, grunge was that was the music scene in the 90s. I mean, right. If you grew up in the 90s, you know that grunge was the music scene. Okay, I like this next one, the Anton and Orange. I always try to talk to flat earthers about this one, because I've noticed they have a huge problem with the idea of mass. like if you were, I mean, they don't realize how big the Earth really is. Like if a giant were to grab the Earth, they wouldn't even, their fingers wouldn't even get wet from the water. Like to us, it's not a sphere, but in the big scheme of things, it's a sphere, man. I mean, it would almost be smooth to them.
Yeah, I don't think that's what this is illustrating, though, with the ant on the orange. This is just kind of just back to what we're talking about, the horizon.
Yeah, and it's showing the mass thing too. Like you can only, I mean, if you're an ant on an orange, everything around you may seem flat, and you can walk all the way around it, and it never changes. It's always going to be flat because the mass is so big compared to the size of the organism on the you know the
or you'd have
or the orange.
I think pretty big. I'd have a pretty big orange for that.
I think they should have used it like an ant and a beach ball would have been a better representation of what I'm talking about.
Right. But you're asking them to better represent what you're talking about when what you're talking about is not what they're talking about.
Yeah, I know. But okay, so
they're using the ant on the orange to illustrate a point.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, do you see what I'm saying though? Like if like you were an amoeba on a beach ball, everything would look flat to you because you're so small compared to the mass of the beach.
Yeah, when you look out, your field of vision is going to create a complete circle all the way around you. That's going to look horizontal and flat to you because that's just what your field of view is intersecting with.
Right. No matter how far you walk, it's always going to be that way because you can't see any further than you can see. It's just, I mean, just the way it is. So I guess I'll read this. The ant on the orange. Imagine an ant walking along the surface of an orange into your field of view. If you look at the orange head on, you will see that the ant's body is slowly rising up from the horizon because of the curvature of the orange. If you would do that experiment with the ant approaching along a long road rather than a round object, the effect would change. The ant would slowly materialize in the view depending on how sharp your vision is. That makes absolute sense. Okay, sorry, my mouse acting crazy. Okay, varying star constellations. This observation was originally made by Aristotle and he lived from 384 to 322 BCE, who declared the Earth was round, judging from the different constellations one sees while moving away from the equator. And he was absolutely right. After returning from a trip to Egypt, Aristotle noted, there are stars seen in Egypt and Cyprus, which are not seen in the northerly regions. This phenomenon can only be explained if humans were viewing the stars from around the surface. Aristotle continued, claiming that the sphere of the Earth is of no great size, for otherwise the effect of so slight a change of place would not quickly be apparent. D. Kallio 298A210. That must be a reference number of some kind. The farther you go from the equator, the farther the known constellations go towards the horizon, to be replaced by different stars. This would not have happened if the world was flat. Okay, you know how we always talk about the difference between the stars in the northern hemisphere and the stars in the southern hemisphere? So if you're on the equator, do you see like a combination of like half and half? Like half of the northern stars and half of the southern stars? Yeah. Do they see neither the North Star nor the Southern Cross because they're not anywhere near? I mean, they're like literally.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if you can see both or neither. I'm not really sure.
I'm kind of curious about that. I'm gonna have to check that out at some point. Shadows and sticks. If you stick a stick in the sticky ground, it will produce a shadow. The shadow moves as time passes, which is the principle for ancient shadow clocks. If the world had been flat, then two sticks in different locations could produce the same shadow.
No, that's not, you know what, that's not a very good point. That is not a very good argument at all.
Oh, yeah?
That is really one of the worst arguments for the Earth being a globe, because I can take two objects right now, stand them up here, and take my flashlight right here, and make two different shadows with these same two objects.
Yeah, you're right, but I mean, but it does
because flat earthers are saying this. Flat earthers are saying the sun is close, and if the sun is close, it will produce different.
Because the light source would be coming from a different angle, right? So that is a bad argument for to argue against their arguments. I get your point. Okay.
So a lot of, you know what, I always give flat earthers shit for not understanding the model that globe earthers are arguing for, and I got to give globe earthers the same shit if you're not understanding the flat earthers arguments and making poor arguments like that. It's not helping. It's not doing us any good.
You're absolutely right. I mean, a bad argument is a bad argument no matter what side it's on.
And all it does is give the opposition something to focus on. If you have a good argument and a bad argument, leave the bad argument out.
Right.
More isn't better in that case. If you've only got good if you only present good arguments, then they don't get the chance to pick out your bad argument and argue only against that.
Yeah. All right. Seeing further from higher, standing on a flat plateau, you look ahead toward the horizon. You strain your eyes, then take out your favorite binoculars and stare through them, as far as your eyes, with the help of the binocular lenses, can see. Next, climb up the closest tree. The higher, the better. Just be careful not to drop those binoculars and break their lenses. Then look again. Strain your eyes and stare through the binoculars out to the horizon. The higher up you climb, the farther you will see. We tend to relate this to earthly obstacles, like the fact that we have houses or other trees obstructing our vision on the ground. In climbing upwards, we have a clear view. But that's not the true reason. Even if you stood on a completely clear plateau with no obstacles between you and the horizon, you would see much further from greater height than you would on the ground, which makes absolute sense. But all that does is extends. Remember how we were talking about when you look around you, it's a circle, and that circle is flat. Well, the same applies for, like, if you climb up a tower. Well, I mean, I don't know if you climbed up a high enough tower if you can see the curvature, but all that does is extend your field of vision, maybe. I mean, but it's still a round, flat plateau because of the mass of the Earth and the size of us. Do you think that argument could be used against us? Against the globe model?
Not really, because if you draw out like a picture of what you should expect to see on a flat plane, you should expect to see far and far and far. You should be able to see London from New York on a flat plane. There's no reason that a horizon would be created on a flat plane. I mean, obviously, there's a limit to what your eyes can resolve, but as long as you can pull out a more powerful telescope, you should always be able to see farther. You're still screen sharing, by the way.
Yeah, no, I am. I just wanted to look at chat.
Okay. You can always pop it out into another window, too. Sometimes I pop it out and put it over the Hangout window so I can see both.
Oh, yeah, I never thought about that.
But, yeah, no, you should. They'll say it's a perspective thing, but they cannot demonstrate how that would work. And they can't demonstrate how come the horizon reduces to nothing at 30 miles, but we can still see the sun.
Right. I mean, I seen a couple flat earthers in the chat that were getting a little feisty, and see, I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to, to let them have their ideas, but they want to. I mean, if it's got to work both ways. I mean, we're not calling them stupid, so they don't. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not intelligent. I just don't understand why they feel the necessity to think everything. I mean, why would they lie to us? That's just what I don't get. I mean, think of the manpower and the logistics of getting all of these nations that can't get along on the simplest of things hide something this huge.
And there's no smoking gun. That's the big thing for me, because there's no limit to the answers they'll give you when you ask how or why. But if you ask what, they don't have anything. When I say, but I have two questions when I do Flat Earth Fight Club that I keep as my go-to questions that I ask new people. One is what is your model of the Earth, and two is can you give me a reason why I should believe that NASA's lying? And they always go, money. They're lying because of money. And I have to stop them and say, that is not a reason why I should believe they're lying. That is a possible motive that they'd have. Yes, they might have that motive, that is actually what's going on. I could say that you're lying to get paid too. It doesn't mean that I have a reason to believe that it is. Yeah, then that
Right.
would be a reason to lie. What is my reason for thinking that they are lying?
Right. Right.
Right. Give me the evidence. Well, they said it's CGI. No, they didn't. No, they fucking didn't. Nothing they've done makes me think that they're lying.
Right.
Oh, they can't go back to the moon. No, they don't go to the moon.
All right. Ride a plane. Okay.
The physical technology to go to the moon doesn't actually go spaceship they could load up today and go to the moon on. But if they decided they wanted to go to the moon again within 5 years, they would be there.
Right. They would have to change a few things. I mean, there are things that like when they went to the moon the first time, obviously the ships weren't as they weren't as what's the word I'm looking for? They weren't as technologically advanced as they are now, and they had a lot of engineered components that weren't digital. I think that part of going to the moon, going through the Van Allen belt, well, the radiation on the crew is one part, but I think that's negligible because it didn't seem to affect the astronauts before. But the radiation from the Van Allen belts might affect the electronics of the ship. Do you understand what I'm saying? In the 60s and 70s, in the 60s and 70s, they were built with analog parts, and it was all mechanical engineering. There was no, electronics like we have, so to speak. So I don't, that's part of the difference too.
And all their reasons they give, it always comes down to things that are just not factually accurate. Like this guy in the chat just said, "Oh, they destroyed that technology." No, they didn't. They didn't destroy the technology. They did not destroy the technology. They just stopped using it because we didn't need to go back to the moon. It wasn't economically viable to go back to the moon. There wasn't anything there for us. There was no reason to continue going to the moon.
Right. At the time,
there may be in the future reasons for private companies to go to the moon if they decide they want to start mining it and stuff like that. But currently, there is no reason to go to the moon.
Right. When they went the first time,
to go back to the moon, they could.
Right. When they went the first time, it was more about bragging rights and just scientific experimentation than anything else. I mean, they had no desire to go back there after they, they went, they found out they did some experiments, they beat the Soviets. I mean, that was their main goal. They wanted to. Since Soviets had Yuri Gagarin and Sputnik into space before Americans succeeded, the Americans wanted to do something spectacular to outweigh the Soviets, and that makes absolute sense if you look at it from the political side of it. I mean, that's just how nations are. I mean, they're still people, and people like to beat other people.
No reason, no value, no 24 view of the Earth from the moon. What value is it to the Earth from the moon? Is that? What good is that? Doesn't have interest in proving flat earthers wrong. You understand that, right? There's nobody in the government or NASA that's sitting around going, "God damn it, we need a globe." No, they let this kid in here.
You're roboting a little bit.
We've got more important shit to do, like saying that people who want to go sail on the ocean need to prove that water is wet. They don't need to prove that a boat will. I'll refresh.
Good. Domi Origato, Mr. Roboto. So how is the chat today? How are y'all? What's a logical fallacy? A screen name? I haven't got to see all of your.
And he says it would shut up flat earthers. They don't need to shut up flat earthers. The people in NASA don't have any interest in convincing people that refuse to accept established science.
Right. Not only established by just the U.S., but it's been established by many, many nations. I mean, how many people are involved in ISS? The Chinese, the Russians, the Japanese, the Americans, the Indians. Who else is there?
Okay, now he says if the globe is real, it would be self-evident. Flat Earth wouldn't be a thing. Now that's a logical fallacy, and I can prove it by just flipping that statement right back around on you.
In what way
would Earth was if the Earth was flat, it would be self-evident, and globers wouldn't be a thing. Not always self-evident.
Exactly.
If you understand the globe model, you understand that part of the globe model is that it being a globe is not self-evident to the subject on the ground unless you start paying attention to what's going on in the sky. Then it becomes pretty clear without too much thought that it is indeed.
And that's where that goes back to what I was talking about. I don't know if he was in here when I was talking about mass. And like, if you put an amoeba on a beach ball, that amoeba, no matter where it goes on the beach ball, it's going to seem flat to it because of the size of the beach ball compared to the size of the amoeba. I mean, the mass. I mean, our Earth is so fucking massive that of course it seems flat to us. I mean, it looks flat to us, but that doesn't mean it is flat. What shows us that it's round, it is self-evident that it's round. The sun rises and sets in a certain way. If the sun was getting further away, it would get smaller and smaller as it goes over the horizon. But that doesn't happen. It stays the same size no matter where it's at in the sky. It just goes over the horizon.
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, if you say that if the Earth was round, it would be self-evident, it is absolutely self-evident. I don't understand how you could argue against that. Ooh, grilled cheese, that sounds lovely. And life underground is pretty well, except for I'm living upstairs now, so I've actually been getting a lot of sun lately. It hurts my eyes.
I'm going to be moving into a new space here pretty soon. Fucking shit all.
Well, you have a nice day too, screen name.
Hit me at once, man. I gotta get this lawyer stuff, and then I got an apartment to move into those wall.
Oh, you do now?
Green screen on me, white screen, actual setup space. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're roboting a little bit. But one lady just said she won't argue Earth shapes, but the boobies are real. Woohoo for real boobies!
I like boobies.
I like real boobies. I'm not a fan of the. I'm really not a fan of the fakins. I just never have been.
There's lots of reasons with boobs, and I think the main one is that it says something about the woman to me. And I'm not saying it's bad. Everybody makes their own decisions. Everybody's free to make their own choices for what's important to them.
Right.
But to me, I would prefer to be somebody that has their priorities elsewhere.
Other than their boobs?
Yeah. But I don't begrudge anybody that gets a boob job. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But I would never encourage a woman to get a boob job, especially one that I was with. And if I was with a woman and she got a boob job, I would probably take that time to reevaluate what was going on. If
right.
The person who I was with was.
That's kind of the same. I mean, that wasn't my reasoning. I don't see the point in ruining what nature has already made. I mean, beauty is, is subjective, first of all. And I mean, as a tit man myself, I like them small, I like them big, I like them in between. So, I mean, they all have their own pros and cons. Each one of them does, you know. It just, I mean, I think that the female body is a beautiful thing, regardless of you know. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing, plain and simple. I mean, I'm not trying to sound sexist or anything, but that's exactly what it is. It's a beautiful thing.
You know, and the other side of that is, if a woman is really unhappy with the way she looks, and she really thinks that that's gonna getting a boob increasement is going to make her more self-confident and happier with herself,
then okay.
By all means, do that. That's right. What makes you happy. That's what you want to do. That's what you do. And I'm like, yeah, do what you want to do. Heck yeah. Right. Congratulations. Good job. I'm super happy for you that you feel better about yourself. Awesome. That's great. Right.
But don't do it for someone else.
It's just not something that I... And you know, at the very base level, if you offer me a big fake boob or a little real one, I'll take the little real one.
Yeah, exactly. All right,
you know, and that's just talking about them as boobs, not even attached to a woman. Obviously, there are wonderful women that have boob jobs. I'm sure there are I would get along with that have boob jobs.
Right, right. I mean, but I would always question their reasoning behind the boob job. I mean, is it self-confidence? I mean, is it insecurity? What made them feel like they needed to get it? And guys that force their girls to get boob jobs, that has got to be the most piggish thing I've ever heard.
That's insane. Forcing another human being to modify their body is insane. Right.
Like if they were good enough to get with, then they should be good enough to stay with. You know, unless they're
and I think that falls down more on the man's control issues and shit like that.
Maybe I just don't get it because I'm not like that. You know, I'm not a jealous psycho freak. I learned a long time ago when I was younger. I used to be kind of jealous, but it was my own insecurities. If you're with a girl and she's going to cheat on you, it's going to happen no matter what. But the trick is to find someone that you click with, and they're not going to need to look elsewhere. I mean, in my opinion. I mean, I got lucky, but I'm not saying that all women are cheaters, but both women and men are cheaters, and I think that has a lot to say about today's culture. To be honest with you, I mean, casual sex isn't really like it used to be. I mean, I'm not trying to talk about morality. I mean, it is a morality thing, but I just think things have changed. I don't care either way. I mean, but I'm just saying things definitely have changed. People are more open to things. I mean, they're less likely to worry about what other people think, you know, but infidelity is still infidelity, and people still get killed over that shit. So it's obviously not that accepted. All right, we're halfway through. Let's do the other 5. Ride a plane. If you've ever taken a trip out of the country, specifically in long distance trips, you can notice 2 interesting facts about planes in the Earth. Planes can travel in a relatively straight line for a very long time and not fall off any edges. It's because there are none. They can also circle the Earth without stopping. If you look out the window on a transatlantic flight, you can most of the time see the curvature of the Earth on the horizon. The best view of the curvature used to be on the Concorde, but that plane's long gone. I can't wait to see the pictures from the new plane by Virgin Galactic. The horizon should look absolutely curved, as it actually is from a distance. That does sound kind of interesting. And here's the one I always go to, and I mean, it's so simple, but they throw it away. Look at other planets. The Earth is different from other planets. Oops, I went too far.
You know, it comes right back down to, I'm going to bring up again them misunderstanding the model. They're not even understanding the model they're arguing against. Look at a golf ball, okay? Flat earthers, look at a golf ball. Will you accept that's more or less spherical in the context of what we're saying? As compared to the shape that you think the Earth is, the golf ball is more like what we're saying the Earth is. Yes, it's more or less a sphere. But if you get close to the golf ball, you don't have to get very close, but if you get close to the golf ball, you'll notice that there's flat spots on it and there's divots in it. and there's topography on it. So yes, there are flat spots on the golf ball, and there are, you know, but that doesn't take away from its overall spherical shape. And the Earth is even more spherical than that. When you get very close to it, yes, there are flat spots. And when you get very, very close to it, as we are on this big giant sphere, the whole thing kind of seems like a big flat spot.
Right.
Especially when you are a flat spot.
It goes back
and there's another point I want to bring up. Say I've got, hypothetically, I've an area that extends way beyond the curvature, that covers a healthy portion of the curve of the Earth, that is totally flat, meaning there's no orbit. Now I put a post in the ground that stands up 8 feet off the ground. I walk 10 feet, and I put another post in the ground that stands up 8 feet off the ground. Again, 8-foot post, every 10 feet, 8-foot post. And I do that for 300 miles. I put posts in the ground that are 8 feet down. Anytime, and I've walked over a curve, I've walked around the curve, and I put these posts that stick 8 feet out of the ground as they go around the curve. I could build a table that lays on those posts, and it would be a flat table. You know what I mean? No part along that table would seem curved. Every part is 8 feet up off the ground, but it is curved because it's following the curve of the Earth.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense or is applicable or whatever, but
what do you think of moles' bodies? Well, I only know about my body, so it's the one I was born with. So I guess I like it okay. I mean, there's nothing I could change about it. So, I mean, but you know, obviously I could change. I could exercise and such like that, but you know, I'm okay.
Here's the thing. I got to ask Globers or Flatties what they think they would expect to see. What curve would you expect to see on a globe? And if you say anything different than you'd expect to see exactly what you do see, then you don't understand the model. Because the model fits observable reality. It really does, and it's the only one that does. If you have a better model, please share it with us.
You have never experienced curvature. This is a perspective you are dealing with. I disagree. We have experienced curvature by the stars in the sky and the sun and the moon. That it shows us right there that the Earth is curved. So how are we not experiencing that?
Perspective. They don't even know what perspective works. Magic word that answers questions. They can say it's perspective without actually explaining, okay, break it down for me. Show me how this perspective works and give me other examples that I can point to of perspective acting the same way as you're saying it does.
Right. All right, the next one. Okay, so I was going to go on to other planets. Like, and this is one I really like because I always bring this one up, and like, I mean, this is the one that's the most common sense. The Earth is different from other planets. That much is true. After all, we have life, and we haven't found any other planets with life yet. However, there are certain characteristics all planets have, and it will be quite logical to assume that if all planets have a certain way or show certain characteristics, specifically if those planets in different places or were created under different circumstances, our planet is the same. That's what in other words, if so many planets that were created in different locations and under different circumstances show the same property, it's likely that our own planet has the same property as well. All of our observations show that other planets are spherical, and since we know how they are created, it's also obvious why they take this shape, unless we have a very good reason to think otherwise, which we don't. Our planet is very likely the same. In 1610, Galileo Galilei observed the moons of Jupiter rotating around it. He described them as small planets orbiting a larger planet, a description and observation that was very difficult for the church to accept, as it challenged a geocentric model where everything was supposed to revolve around the Earth. This observation also showed that the planets Jupiter, Neptune, and later Venus was observed too. They're all spherical and all orbit the sun. A flat planet, ours or any other planet, would be such an incredible observation that it would pretty much go against everything we know about how planets are formed and behave. It would not only change everything.
A lot more than that.
Yeah. It would not only change everything we know about planet formation, but also star formation. Our sun would behave quite differently to accommodate the flat Earth theory. And what we know of speeds and movements in space, like planets, orbits, and the effects of gravity, in short, we don't suspect that our planet is spherical. We know it. The existence of time zones. The time in New York. The time in New York and the time in New York at the moment these words are written is 12 p.m. The sun is in the middle of the sky, but it's hard to see with the current cloud coverage. In Beijing, it's 12 a.m. midnight, and the sun is nowhere to be found. In Adelaide, Australia, it's 1:30 a.m., more than 13 hours ahead. The sunset is long gone, so much so that the sun will soon rise up at 3 a.m. a new day. This can only be explained if the world is round and rotating on its own axis. At a certain point, when the sun is shining on one part of the Earth, the opposite side is dark, and vice versa. That allows for time zones, or time differences, in time zones, specifically ones that are larger than 12 hours. Another point concerning time zones, the sun and Earth, if the sun was a spotlight, very directionally located so the light only shines on a specific location, and the world was flat, we would see the sun even if it didn't shine on top of us, as you can see in the drawing below. Similarly, you can see the light coming out of the spotlight only on the stage and theater, even though you, the crowd, are sitting in the dark. The only way to create two distinctly separate time zones where it is complete darkness while there is light in the other is if the world is spherical, which makes absolute sense.
The other thing you gotta remember is that let's see, where's my pencil? You've got the Earth here, the flat Earth. I mean, you know what? Like here's another fallacy that Globers make a lot, and that is pinning all the arguments on the AE map. And the thing is, I get it. The AE map, we have an even stronger case debunking. Of these, all they do is debunk the AE map. This is the AE map. I've got to start the North Pole in the middle, and I'm going to show what this would be the shadow created by a spotlight, right?
Right.
It would make a circular shadow, but the shadow we've actually got just covers half the Earth.
Right.
How is a spotlight going to cover half the Earth? You know what I mean? And like they said, how come you can't see the actual light from where you're at, even if it's not shining on you? If I'm right here and it's dark and I turn my flashlight on and shine it that way past you, you'll be able to see the light right here.
Right.
Even if I'm not shining the light at you, if I'm shining it past you.
Right.
And you know what I mean?
Exactly. Okay, so the next one we got is the pull of gravity. Here's an interesting fact about mass that attracts things to it. The force of attraction, gravity, between two objects depends on their mass and the distance between them. Simply said, gravity will pull toward the center of mass of the objects. To find the center of mass, you will have to examine the objects. Consider a sphere. Since a sphere has a consistent shape, no matter where on it you stand, you have exactly the same amount of sphere under you. Imagine an ant walking around a crystal ball. From the insect's point of view, the only indication of movement would be the fact that the ant is moving its feet. The shape of the surface would not change at all. A sphere's center of mass in the center of the sphere, which means gravity will pull anything on the surface of the sphere. Okay. Where was I? Okay, on the surface of the sphere, straight down toward the center of the sphere. This occurred no matter where on the surface the object is located, which is what we observe on our planet. We only see what we can see because we're small and the Earth is huge.
And that's how water curves on a ball or whatever. Because that's why water always finds its level, because it's it's forming a bubble, basically. Just like when you blow a bubble with soap.
Yeah. Gravity holds it in place
it can make.
Yeah, gravity is always holding it in place. And since gravity comes from all angles, of course it's going to look level to you. I mean, because your eyes can't distinguish the slightness of the curve. I mean, like, how far? I mean, what is? Do you remember the drop for however long it is?
Sorry, for the curve.
Yeah,
it's something like 8 inches per mile squared, but that doesn't translate very easy. You can't just like punch those numbers in and get a good idea of how much curve there should be because of the way the sphere works. There are calculators on the internet that'll help you figure out how much drop you'll have after how many.
I thought it was 8 inches, but I wasn't positive. Okay,
but it's not just 8. Like, it's the formula is 8 inches per mile squared, but there's more to it than that, I guess. Right. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm a dummy about that particular aspect of it. I don't bother too much. I don't feel like I need to. I don't need to hinge my arguments on math. You know what I mean? I don't.
Yeah, history is more my cup of tea. But I mean, I'm not totally dumb when it comes to science. I understand science. Mm-hmm. My interests lay more in history. You know, I mean, the atheism thing. So I studied history and other religions. So I really, really enjoy history. I mean, even up to World War One. But after World War One, actually, that isn't true. I'd say right before World War II is when my interest stops. I think that's because I got burnt out on the Hitler channel when I was a kid, the History Channel. Remember when it showed nothing but Nazi shit all the time? Are you young enough or old enough to remember that? It was literally like Hitler shows every day, like Hitler's bodyguards, Hitler's drug problem, Hitler's, all kinds of shit. All right, now consider a flat plane. The center of mass of a flat plane in its center, so the force of gravity will pull anything on the surface toward the middle of the plane. That means that if you stood on the edge of the plane, gravity will be pulling you sideways toward the plane's middle, not straight down like you usually experience when you stand on the earth. Isn't that interesting? Makes perfect sense.
That's also an argument that it doesn't really take into account what the flat earthers are suggesting. They're saying gravity isn't real. In the flat earth model, gravity doesn't exist because it can't, because gravity explains why the earth is a globe and why everything else is a globe does. And it's all because it's just geometry. It's just the way space and time work.
Right. Okay, I'm quite positive, even for Australians, an apple falls downwards, not sideways. But if you have your doubts, I urge you to try dropping something. Just make sure it's nothing that can break or hurt you. For further reading about the center of mass, check out this link. And if you're brave enough to handle some equations not involving integration, you can learn more about Newton's law of universal gravitation here. We'll look at that at a later date. Okay, images from space. Now, this is one that a flat earther wouldn't buy anyway because they say it's all computer generated. But I think that's an actual image from space. Look at the way the lights are lit up, and I mean, so I don't know. I mean, yeah, you could CGI that, I suppose, but I mean, it looks exactly like you would think it would look, does it not?
Right. Yeah.
So
that's what I would expect to see. Like, I didn't see anything in the SpaceX Tesla video that made me think it was fake. You know what I mean? There was nothing like, oh, look at the size of the moon. I go, do you know anything about cameras? Have you ever tried to take a picture of the moon when you thought it looked all big and beautiful in the sky? So you whipped out your camera and took a picture of it, and then you looked at the camera and went, picture's not even worth posting. Is the little tiny dot in there? That's
Right.
really all it is. It's just perspective that makes it seem really big in the sky sometimes.
Yeah. So I mean, that was 10 simple things. A couple of them arguments weren't, like you said, they weren't great. For I mean, flat earthers could argue against them easily, but I mean, some of them, I wish I understood their reasoning. I mean, like, why? I mean, why can't they just accept proven science? I mean, is it the? I mean, do they just want to be different, or I mean, do they actually? If they're serious about this, I mean, why? I mean, like, you can watch experiments on, like, doesn't Matthew Santoro have, like, that one show you were telling me about? Like, don't they do experiments with lasers to show the curvature and stuff?
Matthew Santoro.
Whatever. What was that? Oh no, I'm sorry. Vsauce guy. What's his name?
Yeah, okay. I'm like, Matthew Santoro, fuck him. I don't care what he says.
I was thinking of
he
just
fucking talks about ghosts and shit.
I know, another bald
fuck
guy.
Off.
Another bald guy. I apologize.
Vsauce. Yeah, Vsauce.
Yeah. And
hey,
so
Vsauce,
I mean,
Michael here.
so I don't understand why people can't. I mean, the science is doable by anybody. So why don't any of their experiments ever work? Theirs are always harebrained, like shining a light through a fucking half a globe of glass, and oh look, see, that shows the same. If they had logical arguments that stood up, but they never do. They don't have a model, like you said. Never ever. I mean, so that is why I am dissuaded to believe that the Earth is flat. I am very open-minded and skeptical about things, but if there's enough evidence to prove it, that makes me believer.
And I'm
not skeptic anymore.
I'm proud of some of them for certain reasons. Even like Jake the Asshole, I'll start with him. I'm not gonna say I'm proud of him because some of his behavior is insane lately, but he at least was willing to sit and listen to the criticisms of the AE and listen to it be picked apart and come away from it with the intellectually honest answer of the AE map is obviously bullshit. And when he stopped calling himself the flat earth asshole, started calling himself Jake the Asshole, he still doesn't believe we live on a spinning globe, okay? He's still a little bit crazy. He's still quite crazy, actually. I think he might even be more crazy now. But he at least was able to intellectually watch the AE map be picked apart. He even references Cool Hard Logic videos and says this guy does an irrefutable job of debunking the flat earth map. He says, I watched these videos and I could not intellectually honestly continue to believe in that map.
Right.
And I'm like, good on you, dude. Good on you for understanding that the AE map is bullshit. It is ridiculous. There are so many reasons that it does not match up with reality. And some of the things, like Jake has friends in Australia. Okay, so he's in Australia going now.
You're
Are you looking in a northern or a more southerly direction? You know what I mean? And they're like, it's actually in a more southerly direction right now. And he's like, that should never happen on the AE map. If the sun's always near the equator on the AE map, but if the planet tilts and tips and moves around the sun at a different angle, then that might be something different.
Right. Oh, I just wanted to have a short stream. I got to do some stuff yet today, but I hope you all enjoyed our little chat about flat Earth. And tomorrow I'm interviewing. Tomorrow afternoon at 3:30, I'm interviewing Peter. Gonna go for it. My favorite Dutch gigolo. And and then Wednesday, I'm interviewing Bran from the Geek Room at, I believe, 6 p.m. Central Time. And both of these times are Central, if you wanted to know. If you're not subscribed, please do. And you all lovely people have a wonderful, wonderful Friday.